So the next artist on our list is Joseph Deighton Gibson Jr., also known as Jockey Jack, also known as Jack the Rapper. Jack the Rapper is, the most recent name he would have gone by. So maybe that is probably maybe the more likely name that you may have heard of. But I'll refer to, as I'm talking about him, I'll refer to kind of the name that applies to the time period. So hopefully that's not too confusing. But he was born in Chicago. His mom was a teacher. His dad was a doctor. And so, sort of similar to Natty Williams, there was an expectation of university. I don't know if Natty Williams was expected to go to university, but in this case, Joseph Deighton Gibson Jr., he went to Lincoln University, and he was more interested in performing arts, which is not exactly what his parents were wanting him to do, but that was his interest, so that's what he did. And in the 1940s, he acted in what was the first all-black soap opera, which at the time would have been on radio. It was called Here Comes Tomorrow, and it was on WJJD Chicago. And this was also, WJJD Chicago was also where Al Benson was broadcasting. And, this that kind of led to other broadcasting gigs, and eventually his friend's father he was familiar with the broadcasting business. He wasn't a broadcaster, and he was interested in buying a station, a failed station in Atlanta called WERD. And his friend kind of reached out to Joseph Deighton Gibson and was invited him, as his father purchased WRD, to be a broadcaster, since he had experience in it. And so he broadcasted at what was now the first black-owned radio station, and along with his friend, he started DJing there as Jockey Jack. And that station became really well known for playing the top hits by black artists. As we mentioned with Al Benson, there was a time period where broadcasters were able to choose the songs that were played on the radio. So this was during that area for a little while. And one of the things with Natty Williams, Al Benson, and Jockey Jack was just this whole growth of black radio was big, just because of the hits. They're playing music that wasn't previously played, but also just the kind of appeal of the black DJ was really unique to the market. Number one, you were able to connect to the black community in a different way, in a more effective way, that just hadn't been done before. You're playing music that is culturally relative. You're also talking about issues that are culturally relative, and in addition to that, it was popular in white communities as well, or just mainstream America, just because just offered a new angle. There was just a lot of, with black DJs, there's just a lot more. The cadence, the wit, just the whole approach to radio was, not all that different from black music, in which, a lot of humor, wit, the whole style was, completely different, and to a lot of people, was more engaging and exciting, and so a lot of people tuned in for that reason as well, and that was how kind of black radio transcended, just the black community, and as a whole, helped black music, become what it is today. as well as, just really popularizing black music and the culture at that time. So Jockey Jack moved to multiple different radio stations. He made a big name in Atlanta, but when he went to Louisville at WLOU, he became even more, and he really laid into the Jockey Jack persona and kind of transcended the radio station at that point. And that's when Jockey Jack was really known as Jockey Jack, and so that really opened it up to just as this is happening, black radio is really getting bigger and bigger, and so him being a bigger than the black radio or market really helped him to progress his career, and he moved to some other stations in Miami. He was able to become a program director of the station, and after that he went back to WRD in 1954, and this time he was returned as a program director. And at the same time, the civil rights was becoming a bigger issue, and so he focused a lot more of his attention during that time to social activism, in addition to continuing to expand, WRD and his audience, or their audience. So he highlighted a lot of social issues and, just issues that were occurring in black neighborhoods, black radio at the time, specifically in the case of WRD, because it was located in Atlanta, which had, a pretty thriving black community. The black radio offered a unique way to, highlight issues in a mass way, reach the masses, and kind of, all at once, kind of coordinate a response to certain things that might have been going on in a black neighborhood, or highlight injustices or concerns. This was a time where radio was big, but of course it's not like today where some radio stations are syndicated across the entire nation. In this case, it's big. You're able to reach a pretty large population, but it's still kind of a community situation in which I know there are, one example is in some cases, if the community came to the station or called in the station and said, so and so is struggling this month to pay their rent, people would come together and pool the money and get people's rent paid. So black radio was really a tool, and it was definitely a tool that evolved and was utilized in the civil rights movement as well, besides just putting out and expanding black music and promoting that. And so, speaking of the civil rights movement, his station was right next to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was, MLK's headquarter office, or one of his offices. So, that was also used as a tool. The radio station was, if he worked with Martin Luther King, and also, if there was a sudden announcement or something, that needed to go out right then, Martin Luther King or members were able to just kind of pass that over to the radio station and make that announcement immediately. So that was a huge plus, and also, a big tool in the civil rights movement. So, Jockey Jack's career, really spans way beyond all the way through the timeline, basically. And so he not only was a DJ and a program director, also contributing to social issues and civil rights issues. He also put a lot of his time and focus into just developing, black radio, eventually, television as well, but, black industry, and trying to kind of expand that, support future professionals who would be in the field. And it started out with him starting the National Association of Radio Announcers, which became the National Association of Television and Radio Announcers, when it was appropriate. And his intention was to really to support black announcers, and it was made up of some of the most influential DJs during that time. And then in 1963, he moved on to Motown Records. He was in public relations for Motown Records. He had some similar gigs at some different record producers. And after that, he in 1976, he turned his attention to more commentary. He started writing a newsletter that was called Mellow Yellow, and that was a publication where he started to use the term Jack the Rapper. And, just in a reference of time, Jack the Rapper, that was right around the first beginnings of what would have been considered like potentially the first hip-hop or spoken word type movement. 1969 was pretty early on, but that's not, Jack the Rapper is not in direct reference to that, but culturally you can see how things are naturally evolving into what would soon become the early forms of hip-hop / rap. So he used his platform or his newsletter to, he was really outspoken about a lot of issues that he saw in black radio. Of course, coming up and being a pioneer of his time, he experienced a lot of things, saw a lot of things, and as we talked about with Al Benson, later in his career, the industry was kind of, really, throwing around its power as far as influencing what was played on the radio. As black music became more popular, other major labels were stepping in, and so Jack the Rapper's concerns were just about how do we preserve black music, how do we preserve black radio, and so he commented a lot, criticized a lot of the industry, including black record companies and artists, because he saw infiltration and change there as well. So he's pretty outspoken about that, as far as how it was a little bit more black and white. In other words, as far as how he thought, the black music industry should be operated in order to preserve things. And, which is, I think during the times, this is right in the heart of the civil rights movement. So, there's a push to, advance black Americans economically and socially. And I think, for him, being heavily tied in the civil rights movement, there was, there are various, of course, segments who believed different things about how to achieve this, and in his view, it was more about preservation and keeping things intact, and allowing white professionals to come into the black space was going to result in similar ways that they saw in other instances where white people with money came into the scene and kind of slowly changed the landscape, and which was already happening. And I think not only that, but his concerns about just in specific to black record companies, even the independent small black record companies, and how they use their language. Like, he did not like when people would refer to black radio as urban radio, because he felt that just was a umbrella term that didn't really speak to what black radio represented historically and what should represent. So that was him. He was outspoken throughout his career. And then in 1977 was when he first began hosting the first Family Affair convention, which you may or may not have heard of, since it existed into fairly recent, which is as recent as in the 90s. And so the convention started off as a gathering of just professionals in the field. He wanted it to be like a place where people could network, where people who were interested in getting into black radio or black entertainment could attend seminars. A lot of people will say that the convention was more or less always kind of a party atmosphere, but it was definitely intended to be a place where people were able to kind of get educated, get support, and enter the career or enter the field. But as time went on, it definitely became became a little conflated as far as it being just a convention and a party, because it really grew and grew. You eventually have hip hop coming in and bringing in that new wave of musicians and entertainers and professionals. So it just kept growing and growing, and eventually live performances were happening, and it became a place where a lot of people were just newer acts were trying to get. It was a rare opportunity where they were able to directly engage with some of the established stars and successful producers and entertainers in the field. So it was an important place where younger acts could get validated, but some of the growth was not, it was not consistent with the convention's initial goals, and eventually that became an issue.